Can you give me an idea of sort of what your best case scenario is? Like, what kind of numbers do you need to see to help your cash burn to feel better about your business until we get a vaccine?
Well, look, first, thank you for having me. And certainly people are seeing things better than the lows in April and March. It was horrible then. The things that you were just saying, certainly things have improved a bit. That being said, you're right. Until we get a vaccine or some sort of effective treatment, travel's going to have some issues. And look, it's great that things are better than they were, but we are all still far away. And you just heard those occupancy numbers. And let's face it, a half-filled hotel is not profitable. So what we really need is that sense of safety. People want to feel that it's okay to travel. And the thing that's going to help us get there is a vaccine. And hopefully we'll see something in the not so distant future.
Is the worst behind you, do you think, Glenn? Where do we go from here? Is it better or is it kind of plateauing now? I'm curious as to the kind of trajectory you think we're on.
Well, I think a lot of people have been talking about recent flare-ups in different parts of the world, places that have been fairly good, but now all of a sudden there are coming out with more infections that are causing lockdowns. You look in Australia and Melbourne, you look at some of the issues that have happened in Hong Kong. Yeah, there are parts of the world where things were great or very good, and now they're not so good. Even in Europe, as you're well familiar with, you're seeing a bunch of flare-ups here and there. So I think we're going to be on a bit of a roller coaster for quite a while until we get that vaccine. In my point, it doesn't really matter. We need that vaccine or some sort of effective treatment, because when you read these things, it's terrible news items when people are still getting ill. And unfortunately, some people not making it through their illnesses. It scares people, and people want to feel safe. You're going to go on a holiday.
Yeah.
You don't want to be nervous.
So, Glenn, I mean, all of that leads to, cash burn, et cetera. You didn't have to raise any cash so far. Your cash position is better than some of your peers. You are cutting some of the workforce. And I'm wondering, how many levers left do you have to sort of make it through until there is a vaccine?
Well, I think we actually did raise over $4 billion. So we felt pretty good about that $4 billion raise. But, we are feeling comfortable in terms of where our balance sheet looks like. And we've been very clear to the street. We have no problem getting through this crisis. That being said, what will the other side of the hill look like? What's going to change in terms of the industry? And you're mentioning about business travel, and business travel does provide a lot of revenue to some of the big chains, and certainly the front of the airplane is where those people are paying those big fares, helping those airlines. And what's going to happen? Our people are going to be going on as many business trips as they did in the past. From our point of view, though, we're much more leisure oriented. So there's a little bit of a silver lining for us, because when there's a lack of demand, well, those people on the supply side, they are more interested in working with a distributor like us to help fill that empty seat on a plane or an empty room in a hotel. That's unfortunately a little helpful to us, and you don't want it that way, but that's what's going to happen.
Glenn, Alex talks about the cost cuts that you've made. I'm curious, as we emerge from this, how much of that cost base that's been cut comes back? How much of this is going to stay off? What happens in the middle of the P&L to margins? It sounds crass to say it, but has this been an opportunity for you to reshape the business and make it leaner as we emerge from the crisis?
So first of all, look, we're always trying to preserve jobs in a crisis like this. You are not first thing, hey, let's cut more people. That is not our attitude. That's not what we're trying to do. Most of the cuts are going to, unfortunately, land on transaction-related roles. So, for example, customer service. When you have a fraction of what you used to have in terms of volumes, you don't, unfortunately, need as many customer service. But as business comes back eventually, that will go back up. One thing I've been very, very clear about, and I talked about it last week in our earnings call, is how important it is still to invest for the future. We have some great plans for the long term that we've been working on for some time, and we're going to continue. I'm not going to pull back on that, because I know we're going to get through this crisis. At some point, there'll be a vaccine. At some point, people will be traveling again, and we want to be ready with our new programs like the Connected Trip we talked about and other things. We want to be in the right position then. So I think pulling back now in all of our investments for the future would be the wrong thing to do.
You have a big exposure to Europe, so I was hoping to get some perspective on when Europe opened up, how quickly did you see a rebound in vacation travel? And I wonder if we can extrapolate that and use it as a template for when we do get a vaccine and how you look at it.
Well, there's definitely a correlation between when a government lifts its restrictions from a lockdown situation or restricted travel situation, that people immediately start wanting to travel. In fact, there was an interesting stat when the UK lifted some of its restrictions some time ago. The boost in travel that day, the number of bookings we got that day, it was remarkable. And that's something that you do see because people want to travel. That's just, it's inherent. People like to travel. So once they feel safe, once restrictions go, people will start coming back.
In terms of the next few months, what does it look like? It's nice and sunny outside here in the UK right now. It's pretty hot in the rest of Europe. People want to be outside. They want to travel. Pretty much a similar story in the Northeast in the United States. But come October, November, it's going to be cold outside. It's going to be miserable. We're not going to be able to be in bars and restaurants. What do you expect in that period?
Well, I think it's going to be rocky until we get through and have that vaccine, no matter what the weather is outside. It's a safety issue more than anything. And we talk about this all the time, how people, they want to travel, but if you notice at first, it was just traveling locally because it was a drive. You weren't getting on a plane. And then we're hoping that as things get better, people will be more willing to get on that plane to go further for that travel. But nobody knows. And of course, there's a lot of talk about what happens if there's a flu issue at the same time as we have COVID coming back, second waves, all those things. Look, it's easy for me to just come and look long term because that's the way we view our business is long term. Every pandemic eventually ends. Now, one thing that can be helpful, though, to get this industry moving again is government help. And, you know, we see that in different parts of the world, Japan, Thailand, even in Europe, Italy, countries that are putting together programs specifically for the travel industry. Travel industry has over 1/3 billion jobs, or it did before the pandemic. Now there's so many people unemployed in this industry. It's so important that we get people back onto their feet, start in the industry going up, and that requires government help, and we're looking forward to that.